Well, I'm not going to speak very long. There's a number of speakers, and we want to get to hearing them. But I wanted to welcome all of you and thank you for being here. You know, I think this crowd alone says a lot about what today is. So we really appreciate it. You know, I've spent the last few days, and I'd actually looked at them before. Jack has a scrapbook that he gave us to look at, and we put it together so you guys could look at it. But it's been interesting reading about Jack's time on the Kernel and the time others spent, and I couldn't help but, you know, extrapolate from that and think about students today. You know, for one, I kept trying to picture Jack when he was their age and doing some of the things that they do, and it was really something to think about. I also thought about editor selection, and for those of you who haven't been a part of that, or haven't been a part of that process, or don't know how that works, it's sort of a rite of passage for editor candidates. Becca's shaking her head like it's a pained look back there. But I have seen some of the most bulldog student reporters and student editors rendered completely speechless in that process when they're running for editor. They've got. We've gotten to the point where we turn the air way down because they get sweaty, they can't speak, they have such a miserable time sitting up there. And it used to surprise me every time, and then I realized that what is getting to them, what is, you know, making them look like bobbleheads, is that they're realizing the legacy of the position that they're about to hold. And that legacy goes back to so many of you in this room. It goes back to what Jack and his staff did on the Kernel. You know, it's an awesome thing, and students spend a lot of time down here leading what are surely pitiful social lives, putting this thing out because they care so deeply about it. And so now Jack, after 50 years, when he used to roam these halls and live a pitiful, I'm sure you had a great social life during your editorship. But after that time, he's come back to continue that legacy. During his time here, they won, I think, during his time as editor, they won 5 Hearst Awards, which is, you know, sort of the pinnacle of college journalism. The Pulitzer Prize of college journalism is sort of unheard of to win that many. You know, they took on some big issues, integration in the SEC, some very difficult issues. We've got a scrapbook. The scrapbook that we put together has some of the letters, the interesting and shall I say colorful letters that Jack got when he was editor. But it's, I just think it's a testament to what students are doing now, what students have done in the past, and to what Jack is honoring today. So I'll get on with it. If you all could, after this is over, we'll filter out and go up the stairs, and we'll talk more about that later. But in case some of you sneak out for a minute and sneak back in, we're going to go up and go out the front door. We have a little surprise for you on the walk from here over to the Boone Center where we have a reception. But thank you guys so much for coming. Jack, thanks for what you're about to announce that you're going to do, and thanks.
Hello everyone, I'm Dan O'Hare. I'm Dean of the College of Communications and Information Studies here at UK, and I've been here almost 3 years. I've always considered it a privilege for the college to be able to share a building with one of the finest college newspapers that there is. The awards that it has won, the kinds of people that it has produced, like Jack, it is mind-boggling whenever you go back and look at the history of what this organization, the Kernel, has done over the years. And it's really something to be proud of. And I know I join with Beth Barnes, director of JAT, in how important it is that the Kernel be an important player and stakeholder in the College of Communications. My first week on the job, I asked Janice Birdwhistle, who's our development officer, to come in and bring me a list of people that I needed to contact, people that are important to the college, and it was a very long list. At the top of that list was Jack Guthrie. And she says, you'll have to drive over to Louisville to do it. I said, I'd be happy to do that. So she arranged it, and I think that we had set the appointment for 11 o'clock. We were going to have lunch, and I was going to get back for some other appointments about 2 in the afternoon. I got back around 6 that night, as you recall. And we started at 11. We went over to 21C for lunch. We went by UK on Main. He had to show me that place, and we talked and talked, and he told stories and about Madison Avenue, about the Kernel, and you could tell that the Kernel was something extremely important to him. And so it's a privilege for me to say a few words in Jack's honor today, based on how important this organization is to him. And Jack, I can't tell you how appreciative we are of the announcement that you're about to make. Let me just say it's wonderful to see people in the audience, whether it's Paula or Bernie, and certainly Lou, who played a big role in the Kernel. We look forward to talking with all of you. Yeah, Lou made Jack what he is. Jack, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
My name's Dwayne Bonifer. I'm a member of the board of the Kentucky Kernel and former Kernel editor. I don't think we've had this newsroom this clean since I came here in '86. I think it was the first year we had it. So it's nice to see what this place was supposed to look like all those years. There's not a lot I can add about what Jack Guthrie means to the Kentucky Kernel, the School of Journalism, the College of Communications, the University of Kentucky, or the Commonwealth of Kentucky. There are a few words I think of when I think of Jack Guthrie. The first is professional. He's top rate. He's first rate. There's a Jack Guthrie way of doing things, and that's the #1 way. There's a mentor, the role model, the person who shaped the lives in this room and who's made such a lasting impact on so many people, their personal lives, their careers. But the way I think of Jack Guthrie the most is a quote that another one of my mentors, John Begley, likes to say. John says that you'll be the same person you are 5 years from today, except for 2 things in your life: the books you read and the people you meet. We are all better in this world because of knowing Jack Guthrie. So Jack, on behalf of everyone on the Kernel, thank you so much for what you've done.
Here's where the truth really comes out.
Well, there is a little piece of truth here. Well, I wanted to thank Jack for this considerable honor, and I am very happy to share it with J.A. McCauley, whose 3 of his children are here. J.A. McCauley was one of Jack's favorite, one of Jack's favorite professors. And he was a colleague of mine and a friend and a mentor during my early days here. This today is a far cry from the kind of welcome that I got when I came here. It was Jack's first year as editor, his only year, I guess, as editor. And my first year in this building as the Kernel advisor and part-time journalism instructor. And so I came in and I met Jack, and early on, Jack said to me, I'm the editor of this newspaper, and I'm going to run this damn well the way I want to, and the way I think it should be run. And I think you should go back in your office there and close the door. It took a while, but we got to an accommodation, and there were some crises along the way in which we survived. We had an illegal football practice, which the Colonel uncovered, and which generated one of those tests where we got calls from higher up and still ran the story. We had thundering editorials from the editor about integration of athletics in the Southeastern Conference, and a number of a bit of hell raising that year, quite a bit, and a very talented staff, which Jack was able to juggle and manage and get the best out of. Jack was a very determined fellow, and you knew he was going to get where he was going. So I just want to say thank you, and there are a lot of stories that I could tell about when he was getting ready to go into the Coast Guard and some of the things that he did, but I won't. Make room. Let's see. Is Dick coming up?
Yes, next.
Okay, I'll make room for Dick.
We're gonna shift the pages real quick here. Have this page shift and add one person to the program. Someone who probably knows Jack as well as anyone other than Becky, and that's his former college roommate, Dick Wilson.
You didn't tell me this was on the program.
I guess I speak for alumni who were back here with Jack. Driving over here from Frankfurt today, a thought crossed my mind that there are 4 people who are part of this ceremony, one posthumously, J.A. Macaulay, but the other ones, Jack, Lou Donahue, played pivotal roles in my life as a journalist. It was 49 years ago that Jack, I, and 2 other Kernel types lived in a dilapidated rooming house over on Aylesford Place. And at that time, we all knew what we wanted to do in life, and all 4 of us did it. And I would add to that a brash young faculty advisor named Lou Donahue, who at the time we thought was a turncoat when he wanted to leave journalism and become a professor in mass communications. Well, as many of you know and some don't, Lou became a recognized, internationally acclaimed communications professor. Jack, I like to think of in terms of creating the modern Kernel. It was during Jack's year that it became a hard-hitting publication. We, on numerous occasions, scooped the other media, in some cases including the Courier-Journal. We were all proud as we could be because we didn't have to field the phone calls and the letters from the president's office to Lou. And practically everyone on that staff left here and went on to success of some kind in the field of mass communications or law or teaching. And a lot of that, I think, is attributable to Jack's year as editor. He knew when to get in the way, but more importantly, he knew when to stay out of the way. He chose the people to work with him, and then he turned it over to them. And I think once the definitive history of the Kernel is written, that's going to be a very defining year. So Jack, all of us alums from the Kernel certainly thank you for your generosity and pay tribute to you for the purpose for which you're giving it.
Thank you.
Let's see, where can we find a photographer?
You know, I should probably do the correct thing now, as they would if you were on stage, and that's just exit right. I mean, what else can be said? I truly appreciate all of the many nice words from Chris and Dean O'Hara, Dwayne, and of course Lou and now Dick. Dick didn't tell you everything. That was just as well. And there are probably 4 or 5 other people in this room today that knew me. Did you say 49, or has it been 50 years? I don't know how long it's, but I think actually it was 50 years ago this month that we were told we would have that responsibility in the fall as far as the, editorship and the leadership for the Kentucky Kernel. And they know a few things, but we took an oath in '63 never to tell anyone. So Dick didn't portray, he didn't say anything you shouldn't have today. But looking around, I don't know whether Ed Van Hook came in, is here yet or not, or he was coming, but Ed Van Hook was going to be here today, and he was editor the year before, so he was my predecessor, and people like Nancy Green, who was Nancy Lowridge at the time, but it wasn't 50 years, was it, Nancy? No, it certainly wasn't, and certainly her tenure in many different capacities in her professional career and here, with the Kernel. Jack Duarte, who's a fraternity brother of mine and also wrote sports and whatever other trouble he could get into while he was at the Kernel, and of course, Lou. However, I can tell you that being on the staff of the Kernel in the early '60s was much, I want to feel, like it is today. I had the pleasure of spending a couple hours really on the phone with the current editor. And you take from this building that we're sitting in, the offices, our offices were on the first floor at the time. But this college newspaper, it's truly part of all of us. How many of you are on the Kernel staff? Okay, hopefully 50 years from now, you can come back and one of you might do the same thing. But it gets to be in your blood. It gets to be part of your soul. And that's just true, and I can see Nancy shaking her head. And I don't know what it is. If we ever could find out, Wilson and I, they'd let us graduate. One way or the other, we've been around here a long time. But it's important, and it is something that we're a family, and no matter what era, if you will, that you roam these halls. And like the Kernel staff of 2012, all of us spent morning, noon, and night in this building, and we have wonderful memories. It was an incredible experience, and while we worked extremely hard, we had great fun. And talking about the social life, we didn't have a heck of a lot. I would tell you a little story about a sign on our door, but I don't know whether on Aylesford Place. But you didn't have time. You had to work in a couple of classes here and there. And you'd hope the professor would understand. If they were in this building, they understood. Mr. Mack always understood why in the heck we weren't in class for some reason. It's because we had a deadline. And that night, does anybody remember the name Ray Dora? Ray Dora was the pressman. I don't know what other title he may have had, but he put up with more stuff from us. We used to send copy down. We're standing in a press room, literally where they were. Linotype machines is probably what was lined up in here. And Ray had, I don't know, he was just the patience of Job. And we'd change things and do things, but that's when you were putting it together in hot type. So that shows you how old we are. But I wish Ray could, I hope he is somewhere today and knows we're thinking about him. Being editor was an enormous privilege in 1962, as it is today. Each day was a new challenge. When you walked in that door, we didn't know what was going to happen next. And that's part of that excitement. That's part of what you feel still today. What's going to be next? Who's going to make a mistake, or who's going to get promoted, or what professor or what athletic team or anything, what's going to happen in the world. It would make a difference at this university. We took a great deal of pride in writing for the Kernel. And the paper had, Tim Kelly, Tim back there someplace, we tried to outthink or at least get a higher circulation than the Herald Leader. We never made that. But we did. We were number 3. It was the Courier, the Herald Leader, the Kernel. Now, I don't know whether we still maintain that today. We might.
Pretty close.
Pretty close, you know. So you had the 3rd largest circulation of any newspaper in the state. And not only the campus news did we enjoy bringing, but we tried to bring the major issues of the day. They weren't those funny little phones you all take and you get into the internet and you get all your either CNN or whatever in the world you're looking at on that stuff. It was here, and the Kernel helped bring that information. Such things as the Cuban Missile Crisis. Not only were we writing about it, we were interested in looking at that television just to see whether we were going to, well, we knew might get drafted, but, or, you know, were they going to drop bombs someplace or what was going to happen? And we won an editorial cartoon award that year for a cartoon about, it wasn't Khrushchev, or was it? I guess it was Khrushchev at the time, that was taking his missiles and his boats and heading back to the Soviet Union. And you'll see that's in some of the material later. We wrote about the University of Mississippi and a gentleman by the name of James Meredith, who was African American, and an idiot by the name of Ross Barnett, who was governor of Mississippi, who blocked him from entering the University of Mississippi. And we wrote about that horrible day and circumstances down there, and I think we were honored for a couple of those pieces that we did, but we challenged a football coach by the name of Charlie Bradshaw, and it took a while, but he finally was dismissed. But if David Hopp was here, I would tell you, we took David, who is former now editor of the Courier-Journal, and he hid in the bushes over near the practice field at night, because we played most football games at night, so David was hiding in the bushes to get that story. We blew the cover off of illegal practices up here, which sanctioned the football team and the athletics, and they weren't too happy with us at that time. We demanded all students, whether they be white or black, be treated equally at restaurants and around this campus. They weren't. We didn't know that, but we found it out, and we made a move on it, and all of a sudden these barriers dropped from some of the local restaurants and bars. You know, oh no, well, everything's fine. But the students themselves, along with this newspaper, called their attention to that. We challenged the university and the athletic department to allow students, regardless of their race, color, creed, what have you, that they had a right to play intercollegiate athletics. I'm sure all of you, many of you, find it hard to believe that 50 years ago, there was not a black athlete on any team on this campus. None. I wonder if those young men that were in New Orleans a couple of weeks ago know that there was a major changes made at this university, and this newspaper and the Kernel had a role to play in seeing that that was accomplished, not only here, but throughout the Southeastern Conference. We demanded that UK allow all students to participate. We didn't win the battle for a couple of years as far as having a student that was recruited, but we did win the battle. We started the fight in March of 1963, and in June of '63, the athletic board and the board of trustees voted to recruit all students. And that was a major thing, especially when you think of the University of Alabama, the University of Georgia, Auburn, a lot of other southern SEC schools. The Kernel was recognized then, as it is now, as one of the nation's leading student publications. The J School faculty provided us with the tools that we needed to become skilled in our chosen profession. It was individuals like Professor J.A. Macaulay, Mr. Mack, who sincerely cared. And you know who those individuals are today. All you have to do is put a new picture and a new name. But there are people in this building that care about you and the students. And Mr. Mack was one of those people. I used to go in all the time. He was he also wrote editorials for the Herald Leader. And he'd be in at his standard Royal typewriter banging away, but he would stop and take time, whatever you wanted to talk about. He was there, and that was important. So, and it's also very pleasing today that his son Tom and his daughter Sue, and it's been a long time since you and I've seen each other. When?
It has been 50 years.
Yeah, it has been 50.
Other daughter, Joe.
Oh, okay. Hi, Joe. Nice to see you. Yeah, it has been. And I think you got out of here about the same time. When were you? About
65.
65?
62.
Okay, in there. And
72.
Tom was the young one, right? He was the baby.
82.
Another example of a faculty member who cared and helped all of us on the Kernel staff through some very difficult times and tough decisions. And while I did throw him out of the newsroom and suggested that his office across the hall was where that was the beginning. I guess we started at the bottom, but the friendship and my admiration for him built during that year. That he wasn't there to tell us what to do, but he was there to give us advice and guidance and not use a heavy hand, but wanted to make sure we didn't get, not off track, but if we were headed in one direction, he'd give, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? It was up to us to make that final decision. But he was there with a guiding hand, and he put up with a whole lot too. So we're glad that he's here. And Phyllis, I'm happy that you could join him. And to take an opportunity to express my deep appreciation to Dick Wilson, who was the only Kernel editor that I know of that never published an issue. Because of his personal integrity, because he knew what was right. He had to resign his editorship before it ever began because of some control issues at the time that the university and a new advisor, and I won't even use his name because I don't want to give him any credit for it. And it took a while to get rid of him, but Dick, he was not only a managing editor at the time when we were running the Kernel, but he was my best friend and roommate. As he said, we shared, if anybody's been on Aylesford Place lately, the building's no longer there. I think they tore it down with about 3 years after it was bad news. And my now wife, when it came up to graduation, and we almost split up because she said, my God, does he live in that hole? And yeah, we did. We made it somehow. But Dick was as important to the Kernel's success in 62, 63 as any of us. And we had an award-winning newspaper because of Dick Wilson, and I will always be grateful for that. It took a lot of people, and we got it done, and he led that fight too. Today's Kernel editor, and Ed Van Hook's probably not still around, so I hope if he does come to thank him too. But then you've got other Kernel editors like Dick, like Dwayne Bonifer, like Jay Blanton, and probably others in this room that I don't know that have been editors. We've shared a unique perspective on this university and university life. And if the job is done right, it takes more than just 8 hours a day. Again, throw in a few classes, right? How many of you just put in 8 hours a day? It doesn't happen. How many of you have a great social life? You always are not running around. Doesn't happen. And it's not, certainly, you don't have time for a part-time job. Or if you do, you're really burning the candle at both ends. to help with tuition and other costs of going through this university. And being editor of the Kernel, of course, can be a financial challenge. So today it is really a great pleasure, something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I thought if I'm ever in a position that I can, I will. And on behalf of my wife, Becky, who puts up with me on the other end and has for 47 years. Yeah, how's that? 47 years, you know. Behalf of Becky and myself, we're going to begin a scholarship program that will start next year with Becca. So she will be the recipient of a full tuition scholarship to UK. And each editor that comes here after Becca will also receive that full tuition scholarship. But because of the tremendous pressure that an editor is under, but because of the work that she or he really wants to accomplish, I wanted to do something that would make it a little bit easier and also encourage others like you and any of your friends or others to, hey, I should work for the Kernel, I should write, I should apply for that editorship someday and make a difference at the school. You can make a difference. We prove that. And Kernel editors since that time have proved it. And I want it to continue, whether it's, hopefully it always has a print version of the Kernel, but online, and things that we might not even know of that exist today. As long as there is a Kernel, there will be that scholarship available. Being editor of the Kernel allows you to become a member of a very exclusive club. And there are only a few more than 100, if that. I'd have to go back and have people that are members of that club. And there's only one requirement, and that is you have to sit in that office and run one of the best college newspapers in the country. So my personal congratulations for Taylor Moak for her work this year, and it's sorry I can't offer you that same. Taylor is the current editor, and I wish you all the best in the years ahead, and my best wishes to Becca for next year. So being editor of the Kentucky Kernel is truly a privilege and honor. It was in 1963, and it is today. There are a lot of spots on here for names, so that we guarantee that the Kernel will be here for a long time to come, right? And Becca is a graduate of Oldham County High. Which one?
Just Oldham County High School.
Oldham County High, and is going to be a junior. And you're already trying to do this, right? And so did Taylor. So, my congratulations and good luck. And when in doubt, call Richard. And they got your name on there already? I did it. So thanks everybody for being here. Took a little longer than I should, but those of you that know me know that'll happen. So hopefully you will come join us for the reception at the faculty club. And we'll look for coming back next year or so to congratulate the next year's editor.
You want to say a few things about it?
Wow, well, thank you all for being here and coming. I've never seen the newsroom this full before. It's an honor just to be selected as editor of the Kernel, but this makes it so much more special. Wow, I can't even, I don't even know what to say, but thank you so much, Jeff.
You're most welcome. Okay. Thank you. And you don't have to tell your mother and father, just if
Oh,
they
yeah.
know
They know that, like, something's going on.
They know something's up.
A couple final housekeeping things. But before we dismiss, I'd like to get all former Kernel advisors to come forward. We get a picture of the advisors with Jack. Also Beth Barnes, who's been hanging out over on the side there, who runs the School of Journalism. I want to get her in the photograph as well. I want to get those photos here in the Kernel newsroom. One final thing for Jack. they didn't do this.
Big blue bag.
Big blue bag when you were editor, but we think about 30 years ago, we began to give each Kernel editor, upon the completion of his or her term, a mint julep cup with their name and term on it, because it's certainly a job that certainly drives you to drink. And so we thought we combined the two. So there is your, belatedly, your Kentucky Kernel editor mint julep cup.
That's great.
Thank you.